Today from the global lane, Gen Alpha, the first generation to be raised alongside artificial intelligence technology. How will they determine what is real and what is AI created?
Their world absolutely will be ruled by technology, but using it as a tool to enhance your God-given creativity and abilities rather than something to just lean on where you become an unoriginal copy of a copy of a copy.
For this Veterans Day, The Last 600 Meters, a film about the deadliest battles of the Iraq War and the Marines who fought them, under siege in Fallujah, and in Najaf, firefights in the world's largest cemetery.
One tomb on top of another in a huge underground catacomb area, and they're fighting in 330-degree heat, and it was just a horrific, surreal battle.
Blue wave in blue states, and in New York, a Muslim socialist promises free bus rides, childcare, and student debt forgiveness. Young college student voters help Zohran Mamdani become mayor.
They think that will solve their problems because of this brainwashing that they underwent in liberal institutions.
A network of terror at the UN. A 10-year investigation uncovers the truth about infiltration and indoctrination within UNRWA. And it's all right here on the global lane. The AI generation. Gen Alpha, those born since 2013, are the first generation that will not be learning to use technology, but will be raised alongside it. That's the contention of our next guest, who believes Gen Alpha must be mentally strong and morally anchored to survive the challenges of an AI future. Will they rise to the occasion? Adam Hartage is a combat veteran, former CIA operations officer, and the author of the book, The Alpha Blueprint, Preparing the Next Generation for an AI Future. Adam, Gen Alpha is the first generation to be raised alongside AI technology, so how will that shape and make them different than previous generations?
Really, what's happened is, I think of it like a NASCAR race. AI, specifically, ChatGPT, $20 a month or $40 a month, or Gemini, or any of the systems that you want to use, has now, in essence, democratized PhD level intelligence worldwide. And so now everybody for $20 a month has a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, brain set. But the question then that I fundamentally was starting to ask myself was, how do I guide my children in the way ahead? How do I teach them how to stay relevant? How do I try and do we go become Amish and move out to Pennsylvania? It's like, what do you do? And so I looked at that and I said, well, I can't tell them honestly to go to college that it's going to be the secret ingredient to a happy life. Go get a job at a Fortune 500 company, work for 30 years, retire with a 401k. I think that system is dead and gone. And now you've got a system where everyone has access to PhD level of intelligence. It's so how do you differentiate yourself? And that's really the core of everything that this book is about. And I started looking at it and saying, well, God wrote his operating code into us. God programmed our own internal engines and our own operating system, if you will. When we were given our literal DNA from God Almighty. And so the prevailing premise is, if every car on a NASCAR race is programmed the same, meaning they all have the same size engines, the same weight, the same tires, then the difference in who wins the race should come down to the individual inputs of the driver. In other words, the decision-making of the driver, the creativity of the driver, the integrity, the boldness, the courage, the persistence, the willingness to stay in the race, to push it a little bit. So that's really where I think we have to guide our children, is they need to build a firm foundation in family and faith before they start looking at any kind of technology. But their world absolutely will be ruled by technology. So it's not an optional thing for them to be a part of. Everybody's going to have to sort of bite that proverbial bullet, so to speak, and get into technology, but using it as a tool to enhance your God-given creativity and abilities rather than something to just lean on where you become an unoriginal copy of a copy of a copy.
And I think the biggest problem many people face at the advent of this AI revolution is knowing what's real, what is not real. We have fake news, fake AI created photos, fake video. So what will that mean for Gen Alpha? Do they even understand the moral challenge that this presents to determining the truth?
If you look at the world of lies that our kids are inheriting and will be growing up in, that is the first thing that they must understand, is this is the fact, is the world will lie to you repeatedly and consistently. And so what they must have is a firm foundation in their faith and a firm understanding of who they are individually. And I think that is the key thing to keeping someone's sanity in any day and age, but especially in the world that we're going into, where you can't tell what is real and what is false, because by the time you can even scroll to the next social media post on Instagram, that algorithm could have already changed what you're about to see based on the very conversation you're having in your living room. So it's really frightening stuff, but it's also something that we have to be prepared to teach our children how to handle.
So if Gen Alpha rises to the challenge, what kind of leaders will we see? Where will they take us?
Well, I think if Gen Alpha rises to the challenge, which they have to, I think that they will thrive, not just survive in the coming age. And I mean, really what we're talking about is the ability for kids to grow up having spiritual discernment in the digital age. So, we're raising a generation that's bombarded by algorithms which are designed to influence their belief and behavior. Us as parents and believers, we need spiritual discernment more than ever, especially so that we can pass that along to our children and raise strong families and raise strong God-fearing kids.
Okay, it all comes down to morality and faith, does it not?
I think it really does. I think this is, the proverbial separating the wheat from the chaff. I think I don't know if we're end times. I'm not really that kind of a guy that would claim to know something like that. I'm certainly not enough of a theologian to claim expertise, but I will say the time is now, not 2 years from now, to get your house right and your family and your faith right. Okay,
the book is The Alpha Blueprint, Preparing the Next Generation for an AI Future. Adam Hartage, thanks for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Gary.
It started as a simple chapel service.
Really plain and simple. Ordinary and unremarkable.
I don't remember most of what he said.
But then something happened.
I was there from like 2 to midnight. There was just continual worship and continual prayer.
From CBN Films.
I felt like God was telling me, this is what you've been missing.
The Holy Spirit was moving.
Experience the story.
This is more than human intervention.
This is special. This is something different.
Experience the move of God.
I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Experience the Asbury Awakening.
We went from a school to a church to a mission field in a week.
We had lines of people around campus.
Not just regional, it was Oregon, it was Hawaii, it was New York, it was Maine, it was Florida.
The Asbury Awakening. Experience this powerful story on instant streaming access and DVD today for a gift of any dollar amount. Strengthen your health with Boost Your Immunity from CBN. In this free DVD, medical experts share cutting-edge research that can help you beat disease and build a healthier you. Learn the foundations of a strong immune system and practical strategies to protect yours. Discover how ancient remedies meet modern science in defeating disease and enhancing self-care. Call or visit us online to get your free DVD today. Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living Tuesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Here in the United States, Veterans Day is an annual celebration when we honor the country's 18 million veterans. This year, PBS is presenting a film on the lessons of the Iraq War. More than 4,000 Americans perished, 32,000 were injured during the 8-year war, which started in 2003. Two of the deadliest battles of the Iraq War occurred in Najaf and Fallujah. With us is Michael Pack. He's president of Manifold Productions and director and producer of The Last 600 Meters. The film focuses on those two battles. Michael, what was unique about the Battle of Fallujah that differed from the combat experiences, say, of those who served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam? Anything?
Yeah, these are very, very, very different kinds of wars. So it's not like World War I, World War II. It's closer to Vietnam, but this is a counterinsurgency. So, and there's political pressure on the combatants in a different way than there was in World War II. For example, we showed this film to recon Marines who had been island hopping in the Pacific in World War II and ahead of the Marine Corps, and they said they could not do what the young Marines in our film did, where they don't know whether someone's an insurgent or somebody is a civilian that they have to help. They don't know whether someone's is hiding an ID is going to kill them, or is someone that they're supposed to be teaching English and giving candy to their children. So it's a very different kind of war, and we try to depict it from the point of view of the people who fought there. It's called The Last 600 Meters because a Special Forces sniper says, I don't make foreign policy, I deliver the last 600 meters of it.
And in your film, you depict the huge cemetery in Najaf, the Wadi al-Salam, the world's largest by area, by the way. What was the challenge for the Marines fighting a battle there in that cemetery?
It was a horrific battle. That was Najaf in the south against the Mahdi army, Shiite insurgents who had taken over the city. And the cemetery, as you say, was vast, huge, and weird. You can see in the images of the film one tomb on top of another and a huge underground catacomb area. And they're fighting in 330-degree heat. The Marines had to go in and come out and have IVs with water in them to rehydrate, and then they got back into the battle. Some of them left the IV stunts in their arm so they could more easily hydrate. And it was just a horrific, surreal battle. The Marines involved in it, tell the story of that. And then, of course, the Mahdi army, like the insurgents in the north, used civilians to hide behind and mosques. And in the end of this end part of that battle, they all cluster in the Imam Ali Shrine, which is one of the holiest sites in Shia Islam, which Americans couldn't bomb or attack. And we were designing a way to get in there with Iraqi commandos when the whole thing kind of found a political half solution.
So, Michael, what are the lessons from the Iraq War? What did we learn?
I don't really feel you generously said my film tells the lessons, but it really doesn't. We really give the experience of the battle from the point of view of this. It's a mainly Marine battle, but from the Marines and soldiers who fought there. And it's their story, a battle story like Gettysburg or Iwo Jima, like telling any story of any battle. And we leave it to the audience to draw conclusions. It's really more of a descriptive and experiential film. I want the viewer to feel like he's in the battle with these guys, and they look right at the camera. They tell first-person stories about footage that they're in. So you really get a sense of what's happening in this kind of warfare, which is going on today in places like Ukraine and especially in Gaza. Hamas uses a lot of the same techniques as both the Mahdi army and the Sunni insurgents in the north.
Well, let's talk then about the Iraqi war veterans. Many still suffer from the scars of that war, physical, emotional challenges, including PTSD, drug and alcohol addiction, marital problems, divorce, suicide. So what must be done for these veterans that's not being done by our government and churches? You know them well.
Well, I think that, as one of our Marine veterans said, of those that are actually in combat, and as you know, it's not a huge percentage of the military that's in combat. They talk about the tooth to tail ratio, the number that are actually fighting versus support. But those that are in combat, one of our Marines said to me off camera, they all have PTSD. It's like a spectrum from mild to severe. You can't go through these battles without being emotionally scarred for life. But I think what we try to do, which I think isn't done enough, is actually to celebrate what they did in battle, not just make them pathetic figures of, worthy of our sympathy, but understand what they did in battle, their heroism and courage, not just their struggles and difficulties. And you can see in the film many instances of incredible heroism under tremendous pressure. But I also think on Veterans Day, we have to celebrate them in terms of their valor, not just their suffering.
Well, how about personally? I'm sure you'd agree that we should honor them not only on Veterans Day, but every day of the year. What's the best way to do that? Me as an individual, you as an individual?
I think we need to understand them. We need to know what it means to be in these kind of battles. And I think that would make us also more cautious before sending them to war. I'm not saying we shouldn't ever do that, but we should do it cautiously and knowing what we're sending these young men and women into to do. But I think that we need to understand what war is and what we're asking. I think that's an important thing to do.
Okay, and maybe just going up to them and thanking them, maybe buying them a meal, something like that. The film.
Well, you can't do enough of that. That's certainly true.
Okay, the film, The Last 600 Meters, again, will be broadcast here nationally on PBS on the eve of Veterans Day, November 10th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Michael Pack, thank you for being with us and for honoring our Marines and veterans by presenting the war from their perspective. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be on your show.
Strengthen your health with Boost Your Immunity from CBN. In this free DVD, medical experts share cutting-edge research that can help you beat disease and build a healthier you.
We live in this world of chemical soup, and a lot of people don't recognize that what we put on our skin directly affects our health.
Learn the foundations of a strong immune system and practical strategies to protect yours.
So this is the first time anything's been shown to reduce the risk of developing an autoimmune disease, much less something as simple as a supplement we can get over the counter.
Discover how ancient remedies meet modern science in defeating disease and enhancing self-care.
And this man said, Jordan, I'm gonna tell you how to eat and live like the Bible says, and in 90 days, you're going to be going from wheelchair to working out on the beach.
Call or visit us online to get your free DVD and boost your immunity.
I believe the time has come to begin a battle of annihilation.
In these 3 weeks, people felt like there is going to be a second Holocaust.
If we break through those walls now, the whole world will stand on its head.
To be right here, Mota, and not to go in, history will never forgive you.
Are you going crazy? You'll set the whole Middle East on fire.
As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Tuesday night at 8 on the CBN News Channel.
Blue wave in blue states. As many polls predicted, Democrats came out on top in off-year elections in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia. Why did this happen? What role did young voters play in this election? Well, joining us is Young Voices spokesperson Victoria Churchill. Victoria, a blue wave in 2 blue states and New York City. Were you surprised?
Well, that's a good question. So first of all, if we looked at polling going ahead of time, ahead of the election, we were seeing that Democrats were probably going to win in Virginia, which is my home state. And then also that Democrats, at least at the top of the ticket, were going to prevail in New Jersey. I think that result that we saw in New York City is definitely something that was expected, but that also other Democrats, as well as even Republicans, President Trump endorsed Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of the state of New York, who was running against Zohran Mamdani. Trump went in with the last-minute endorsement for him, I guess hoping to make a difference. But, some Democrats called that Mamdani endorsement, that Cuomo endorsement, a kind of kiss of death that helped propel Mamdani over the top.
Well, what role do you think the government shutdown played in this, especially in Virginia, where the north and southeastern parts of the state are dominated by federal workers, many of which have been hurting financially since that shutdown.
Yeah, definitely think that government shutdown had spurred some Virginia Democrats to go out and vote. A lot of them are furloughed, so they don't have anything else to do other than go to the polls and, kind of address their dissatisfaction with the Trump administration. But also they have a ability to support somebody who they think can make a difference. But the question remains, what difference can the governor of a state that won't be inaugurated until January make on current situations that are happening across Washington? And so, I think that remains. I think people were able to go out and kind of voice their frustration, but whether that will actually improve their own personal direct situation, that question I think is still out in the air.
It seems like the shutdown will be done probably within another week or so. And New York City, you mentioned it, it'll soon have a socialist, a Muslim mayor. And what role did young voters play in his victory?
Well, the young voters definitely supported him. He himself is a young guy. He's 34. But another thing that I thought was interesting is that Mamdani tried to paint himself as a sort of man of the people, as one that understood their woes and their day-to-day issues that they struggle with. But to me, that really seemed a little bit disingenuous. And I think if you look at some of the breakdowns by demographics, that message didn't necessarily transcend to the groups that he wanted to. So he actually lost the lowest income New Yorkers, who you would think would be kind of all aboard on the socialist agenda. He lost them to Cuomo. These were New Yorkers making under $30,000 a year. And he also managed to get a demographic that I saw painted on X, on social media, as kind of the college debt crowd. So these are well-off people that went to college, had, kind of brainwashing by liberal institutions from all the time that they spent in college, and now are dealing with student debt. And so they think that Zoran's kind of fairy tale policies that he wants to do to implement to stem the cost of living crisis that they are living under, they think that will solve their problems because of this brainwashing that they underwent in liberal institutions. But even liberal media outlets yesterday were commenting on the fact that a lot of Zoran's most radical policies he actually can't do from New York City alone. So he needs to go ahead and convince, state legislators up in Albany in New York, which is a body he currently sits in as a state senator, as well as even the governor, Kathy Hochul, because a lot of these things that he wants to do, like raising taxes on the wealthiest residents of his soon-to-be city, he can't do that from City Hall or from Gracie Mansion, where he's going to live. And, the question remains, will Hochul be on board? Because if you look at the margin that Mamdani won with, he is going to feel like he can take that mandate and try to take New York City policies and have them influence New York State. But Hochul herself is going to have an election next year. And so, she campaigned with Mamdani in the past final weeks of the election, but it remains to be seen whether his brand of the Democrat Party, Democrat socialism, which he did not shy away from, at his campaign rally in the opening lines, he quoted the former founder of American Socialist Party and their former presidential nominee. So he is taking that socialist brand all the way. And it remains to be seen whether Democrats elsewhere in the state will buy in or whether they will reject him any way that they can on things that he doesn't necessarily have a control over.
Okay, we'll see where all this goes. Victoria Churchill, Young Voices spokesperson, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
A nation in a fight for its existence becomes a model of hope, community, and innovation. So how does Israel thrive despite its constant struggles?
I think Israel may be the most resilient country in the world.
From integrating youth into national service to companies supporting working parents.
We do a better job of maximizing human potential.
Explore a culture built on belonging.
It's this incredible sense of we are home.
Solidarity.
We're all encouraging each other, lifting each other up. We're a unit.
And service.
Everyone knows they have a part, and everyone knows how to pivot from normalcy to crisis on a dime.
Join CBN's Gordon Robertson to discover Israel's true innovation. Its people.
We are not going to be normal. We are going to be exceptional.
And I think that is the genius of Israel.
this kind of lifestyle was leading to nothing but destruction. I just wanted to give a big middle finger to life and blow up everything. The light is so light when you know how dark the dark is. And I am grateful every single day for the life that I have. And I know every single day that the life that I have is because of Jesus. And if God can do that for me, then he can do that for anyone.
Hi, I'm John Stolnis, host of the CBN News podcast, DC Debrief. I'd love for you to join me each Friday morning for the inside scoop on Washington politics. We will talk to experts, lawmakers, newsmakers, and analysts to help us take a deep dive into the important stories you might not hear anywhere else. Don't miss this unique CBN News perspective coming to you straight from the nation's capital, because truth matters.
On October 24, 2025, during a press conference in Israel, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has become a subsidiary of Hamas. He emphasized that the terrorist organization cannot play any role in governing Gaza's future. In response to Rubio's remarks, the Swiss monitoring group UN Watch recently released a map claiming to expose the systemic infiltration of UNRWA by terrorist organizations, most notably Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. UN Watch asserts that it conducted 10 years of research, discovering that nearly 500 UNRWA employees were involved in terrorism, incitement, and membership in extremist organizations. The group is calling on the United States to, quote, take definitive action to dismantle UNRWA. UNRWA has responded to these allegations by denying any systemic infiltration and emphasizing that its over 30,000 staff members overwhelmingly adhere to UN neutrality principles. 1 year ago, Israel passed a law banning UNRWA's operations with Palestinians, thereby ending its cooperation with the agency, which had begun in June 1967. Folks, that was the right move. Here at CBN News, we've reported for years on how UNRWA has educated young Palestinians to wage jihad against Israel. In one of our reports, David Badin of the Center for Near East Policy Research displayed a page from a textbook used by UNRWA, featuring imagery of a female terrorist.
This is Dalal al-Mughrabi, who murdered 36 Jews in a terror attack in 1978. And she's glorified in this book, and there's a whole curriculum for her, run by UNRWA. U.S. taxpayers have contributed as much as $400 million annually to UNRWA, funding activities that promote hateful rhetoric and terrorist infiltration. The Trump administration and Congress froze this aid less than a week after President Trump began his second term. It's time to make this freeze permanent and disband this international agency, which has been used by terrorists to spread anti-Semitism and violence. Romans 12:21 reminds us not to be overcome by evil, but to overcome evil with good. So let's replace UNRWA with something better, free from corruption and hate. Additionally, let's strive to apply that biblical advice in our own lives. Well, that's it today from the Global Lane. Until next time, be blessed.